She moved into her new house. But the basement wasn't empty. Subscribe if you think you could survive a night in this house. The scream came from the basement. At first it sounded far away, muffled by concrete and dust, but by the time Lena reached the bottom step, the sound had already stopped. Only her own breath filled the silence. She stood there barefoot, one hand gripping the railing, the other clutching her phone's flashlight. The beam of light wavered through the darkness, catching motes of dust that swirled in the stale air. The old wooden stairs creaked beneath her weight. She'd moved into this house just 3 days ago, a 2-story farmhouse on the edge of Ashwood County, a quiet place where time seemed to sleep. She'd bought it at auction after the previous owners vanished last year. The listing said minor structural issues, but nothing about what she was hearing every night since she arrived. It started as faint scratching beneath the floorboards, like tiny claws against the wood. She thought it was mice. Then came the voices, whispers too soft to understand, but close enough to make her freeze mid-step whenever she passed the basement door. Tonight she'd had enough. Lena aimed the flashlight down the final steps. The basement stretched ahead in long shadows. Concrete walls, low ceiling, the air thick with dust, and something else, a damp metallic scent like rusted pipes. And then she saw them. At the far end of the room, children's toys, old, faded, covered in grime, sat in a perfect circle. A cracked doll with glass eyes, a wooden train with peeling paint, a stuffed bear missing its left ear. Every single one was humming. It wasn't a tune, just a low vibration, a faint electrical buzz that made the hairs on her arms rise. She approached slowly, one step at a time, until the beam of her flashlight fell across them. None of the toys had batteries. Then another, and another. Dozens of them, forming out of nowhere, climbing toward her. Lena ran up the stairs, her phone's light bouncing wildly. She slammed the basement door shut and locked it, pressing her back against the wood as her chest heaved. The house was silent again, until she heard a faint knock from the other side of the door. Then another, slow, rhythmic, like a child asking to be let out. Her phone buzzed in her trembling hand. A notification. One new photo. She hadn't taken any pictures. She opened it. It was a picture of the basement door taken from the inside. And just beneath it, in the darkness, a caption appeared that she didn't write. "Thank you for coming home." The morning light didn't reach the basement door. It never did. Lena sat at the kitchen table with her hands wrapped around a mug of cold coffee, her eyes fixed on that door at the end of the hall. It looked ordinary white paint, brass knob, but something about it felt alive, like the wood itself was breathing. Every time she blinked, she swore she heard faint tapping from the other side, like small fingers drumming just to remind her, "We're still here." She hadn't slept. The photo from last night still glowed on her phone screen. It showed her basement door from the inside, faint light shining through the cracks. In the bottom corner of the picture, just barely visible, was the outline of a hand, small, thin, childlike. She'd deleted it twice already, but it kept coming back. She decided to call the realtor. When the woman answered, her cheerful tone cracked the quiet. "Oh, Miss Davis, settling in okay?" Lena hesitated. The basement. Was there anything mentioned about it? Any issues? A long pause. The woman's voice dropped an octave. "Oh, that part of the house. We were told to seal it years ago, but the previous owners refused. Why? Did something the line cut?" Static filled Lena's ear. Then, faintly through the interference, she heard a child humming. She dropped the phone. It clattered against the counter. The humming didn't stop. It was coming from below her. Slowly, she approached the basement door again. It was still locked. The house was silent except for that low melody rising through the floor. Her heart raced as she crouched, pressing her ear against the wood. "Who's there?" she whispered. A pause, then a knock. 3 short taps. She stumbled back, nearly tripping over the rug. Her eyes darted around the kitchen, searching for something, anything, to make sense of it. That's when she noticed the wall near the refrigerator. The wallpaper was bulging slightly, like something underneath it was pressing out. Lena hesitated, then peeled the paper back. Behind it wasn't drywall. It was a wooden panel, old and cracked, with small holes drilled in random spots. She leaned closer. Through one of the holes, she thought she saw movement, a flicker of something pale, shifting in the dark. Then, a whisper from behind the panel. "We can see you too." She stumbled backward, knocking the mug from the counter. It shattered across the floor. Her breathing came fast, uneven. She forced herself to grab her phone, snapping a picture of the wall, but when she looked at it, there were faces, dozens of them. Faint, translucent, pressed against the inside of the wall, their mouths open like they were screaming. She dropped the phone, shaking. Minutes passed before she dared to move again. She turned toward the living room window, but something outside caught her attention, the reflection of her own face in the glass. Except her reflection wasn't matching her movements. It was smiling. Her blood ran cold. Slowly, the reflection lifted its hand and pointed downward. To the basement door. That was when the scratching started again, louder this time. Fran Hunwood. Tick. It wasn't one thing. It was many. She grabbed a kitchen knife and stepped toward the door. Each step felt heavier than the last, the air thick with pressure, like she was walking underwater. When she reached the door, the noise stopped. Then a voice spoke soft, right against the wood. "He's still down here." Her grip on the knife tightened. "Who?" No answer. Only silence then, the faint sound of a door opening somewhere below. Without thinking, Lena unlocked the basement door and pulled it open. Cold air rushed up from below, carrying the smell of earth and rot. She descended the stairs again, flashlight in one hand, knife in the other. The toy circle was gone. Now the toys were arranged into the shape of a person, a crude figure lying flat on the concrete floor, its head made from a doll, its limbs from blocks and trains. Her flashlight flickered as she took a step closer. Someone had written on the wall in black charcoal, "We live here." Behind her, a soft creak broke the silence. She turned slowly. Standing halfway down the stairs was a little boy, no older than 6. His skin was pale gray, his clothes tattered, his eyes empty and black as wet stone. In his small hands he clutched a toy car, one from the circle. He looked up at her and whispered, "Don't wake him." Then he turned his head toward the shadows in the corner. The darkness moved. A shape too tall to fit in the room, its outline wrong, like it was unfolding from the walls, began to crawl forward, bones creaking, its head scraping the ceiling. Lena's flashlight caught its face, or what was left of one. The features looked human once, but were stretched, twisted, fused with the wood beams. Its mouth opened wide and whispered, in dozens of voices at once, You shouldn't have come down here." The light went out. The door slammed shut, and upstairs on the kitchen table, her phone buzzed once. A new notification. One photo received. The picture showed her standing in the basement with that thing towering behind her, smiling. The photograph wouldn't stop changing. Every time Lena blinked, the image on her phone seemed slightly different. The shadows moved. The thing behind her stood closer, its grin spreading wider with every glance. She dropped the phone onto the floor, her shaking hand catching the glint of the knife in the dim light. The house was silent again. She was still in the basement, her back pressed to the cold wall, the taste of dust in her mouth. The little boy was gone. The creature that had crawled from the corner had disappeared into the dark. But she could still hear the soft hum from the children's toys, now scattered across the floor like bones after a storm. Somewhere in the distance, a clock ticked. She hadn't noticed it before. Tick, tick, tick. Each sound echoed deeper than it should have, as if time itself had slowed down in this place. Then she saw an old wooden door at the far end of the basement, half buried behind old furniture. It hadn't been there before. She stepped toward it slowly, brushing aside cobwebs. Carved into the wood was a single word: below. Her instincts screamed to leave, but something stronger pulled her forward. Curiosity, or maybe the same thing that drew whoever lived here before. The knob turned easily. The door creaked open to reveal a narrow staircase spiraling down into blackness. The air that rose from it was cold, too cold for any basement. It smelled of soil, decay, and something old enough to have forgotten its own name. She descended with her phone light trembling in her hand. The steps seemed endless, leading into a tunnel that twisted beneath the house. The walls were made of packed earth, lined with wooden supports that groaned as she passed. Every few feet, she noticed carvings etched into the dirt names. Dozens of them. At the bottom, the tunnel opened into a chamber, and there, in the center, stood a row of small wooden chairs, each occupied by a child. They weren't alive, but they weren't dead either. Their faces were gray and motionless, eyes closed as if asleep. Their hands rested in their laps, holding toys identical to the ones from the basement above. The humming was louder, now. A low chorus that seemed to come from their throats, though their lips never moved. Lena took a step closer. "Who are you?" A whisper answered from behind her. "We were his." She turned slowly. The little boy stood there again, his head tilted, eyes black as the tunnels. "He keeps us when the house is empty." Lena's throat tightened. "Who is he?" The boy pointed upward, toward the ceiling, the one that built the house. He never left. The ground trembled. Dust fell from the rafters. The air grew colder until her breath came out in mist. She heard the creak of the beams above like heavy footsteps moving through the ceiling. Then, a sound behind her wood snapping. The children's heads turned one by one, their eyes opening at the same time. Their pupils were empty white, reflecting the light like glass. They began to hum in unison, louder, deeper. The earth shuddered with it. Lena stumbled backward, her phone's light flashing across the far wall, revealing a massive figure pressed into the dirt, half buried, its shape human but distorted, arms stretched too long, ribs like wooden beams, its face carved into the soil itself. The empty sockets where its eyes should have been began to drip black liquid. It spoke without moving its mouth. "She found my children!" Lena screamed, bolting for the stairs, but the tunnel behind her was gone, sealed shut with fresh soil. The boy stood between her and the wall, tears streaming down his gray cheeks. "He'll make you stay too." The humming grew so loud she thought her skull would split. She clawed at the dirt, trying to find a way out. The air thickened, heavy with the scent of wet earth. The toys began to move on their own, rolling toward her feet, forming another circle around her. One by one, the children turned their heads toward her and spoke in perfect unison. "Welcome home, Lena." The ground gave way beneath her. She fell screaming, into total darkness. When she opened her eyes again, everything was quiet. The house above was still. The sun was shining faintly through the kitchen windows. At first, she thought she'd dreamed it all until she heard the basement door creak open behind her. She turned her head slowly. A man she didn't recognize stepped into the kitchen. He wore work clothes and carried a box labeled Moving Supplies. He smiled, unaware of the faint black fingerprints smudged across the basement door. From beneath the floorboards, faint humming began again, children's toys, softly vibrating in rhythm. Down in the dark, Lena sat among them, her eyes open but unblinking, a faint smile frozen on her face. And somewhere deep in the earth, a voice whispered, "She moved in." If this story kept you up at night, wait until you hear about the house they sealed in concrete. Hit subscribe if you dare.